Was Kamala Harris betrayed and sabotaged by Joe Biden?
Do black voters sabotage themselves?
Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said.
The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent.
I'm Soraya.
And this is Middle America with Vin and Sori, where we are not left wing, we are not right wing, we are just
right.
Right. Mm-hmm. You remember the thing with the porridge? This one didn't work. This was just right.
This one was just right.
Yeah, our just right is a different just right than you, dear listener. Okay, so we've got a variety show for you beautiful people today. A couple days ago, we did a 9-hour broadcast that I'm still working on editing and cutting up so you guys can take it in bite-sized little thingamajiggies. You see right here, should I have the thing scrolling so it'll get more attention, or just leave it static?
I would scroll it.
Okay, we've got a scrolling ticker here, and that is for anybody that disagrees with me.
Right. It's like, only if you disagree, because we want to have strident and interesting conversations
only if you disagree.
That spark frustration.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's too small.
No shit, Sherlock.
We're not the fix-its.
Keep digging, Watson. I wish there was like an undo thing here.
Oh, there's not?
I should have never listened to you.
Should have been so easy to just stretch it. They should have an undo button. Welcome to Middle America, you guys. Anytime. Yes. Okay, so one of the things about our channel is that randomly we'll have Ask Me Anythings, and you dear chat gets a chance to ask us anything. So right now we are actually having one of those. Oh, you're not.
Yeah, no, we're okay. You don't have to ask me anything.
Forget it.
Well, yeah, I've already conceded the point about AOC, although I do not believe she's a lost cause. I do think you were right from the beginning about her, but and I might still just be, whatever, but I don't think she's a lost cause, especially considering Bernie is signaling that he's
doing what?
He's signaling that he's about to do a real break with the Democratic Party, maybe start his own party, which doesn't really make a lot of sense, but okay.
You said who?
Bernie. He came out and blasted the Democratic Party. So people are now starting to speculate.
As in he's going to try to run again for something?
Yeah,
he'll be like 90.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to run again. I find that hard to believe that he would do that.
Okay, so you just think he might be he might initiate something and get things moving in a direction.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't really know, because it's like I don't really know like what's going on in his head. Like I said, he's like 900 years old. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And on the last campaign trail in 2020, he was hospitalized. It was bad. So now, you add another 4 years to that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. All right, guys. Here we go. We've got a lot of things on the table here that we're going to talk about. As I said, if you have a disagreement with me about something, all you got to do is raise your hand by typing 22. If you type 22, I will send you a link free of charge, and then you and I can
disagree.
You and I can disagree agreeably. We can show these people in the rest of America, these freaks, these weirdos, that Americans can love each other and still disagree agreeably. Mm-hmm. You people hate free days. Yes, I hate free days. I'm about to go into a season of productivity, dear listener, like you wouldn't believe. Got to do it. Okay, so we have got a lot to cover, dear listener. As we said, we're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. And so we're gonna go do that. Okay, now let's check it out here. The number one video that we're looking at. What are we looking at here? Who do we want to talk about? Joe, you know what? I really want to do. Revealed Biden security team sabotaged Kamala. Timestamp this joint, por favor.
Yep.
Biden team secretly sabotaged Kamala. That is the title of this thingamajig here. And we're about to go and look into that joint. And we will be the judge as to whether or not that happened, dear listener. Let's check it out right here. Let's go.
Very happy to be joined this morning by my great friend and independent Substack journalist, Touré. You can follow him over at his Culture Fries Substack. Great to see you, my friends.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, of course. So you did some fantastic reporting here. You can put this up on the screen about some of the internal dynamics within the Kamala Harris campaign. And you asked the question, did Jen O'Malley Dillon, a Biden loyalist, doom Kamala's presidential bid? You say Harris was forced to run with a Biden loyalist who stabbed her in the back. Just explain some of these dynamics that were going on behind the scenes, Touré, according to your reporting.
Now, I'm gonna wait till the native land people get a hold of this one.
Uh-oh.
Because this is a white lady.
Yeah.
So they're about to make an argument that a white lady sabotaged Kamala.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And which she was one of Biden's loyalists, which I don't understand why Kamala would keep a Biden loyalist on her team. Like, why would you do that? Mm-hmm. But this is what I'm saying. Like, Kamala was not. She just didn't have the political instincts. Can you imagine a person like Trump allowing something like that to happen?
No.
If it did happen?
No, I can't.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
The opposite criticism is happening. They're saying that he's just surrounding himself with yes people.
Right. Now, I want to hear what Touré has to say about whether or not this actually happened. So we're right back into it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I just started calling my friends in D.C. at Democratic high places, and people kept talking about Jen O'Malley Dillon, who was the campaign chair for Kamala Harris 2024. But in 2023, when Biden felt threatened that the party might try to push him out and replace him with Kamala or force them to do a primary, Biden people like Jen O'Malley Dillon started messaging to media against Kamala. So there's these articles from 2023 saying maybe Biden should dump Kamala as VP. Those are coming from Jen O'Malley Dillon. So the person who Kamala would later have to take on as her campaign chair, because there's 100 days left, we don't have time to look for a new person. We have a million tasks. We have to accept her.
No, we don't. I would have eating, meaning, mighty, mowed it. What do you mean there's nobody? I mean, look, man, like, this person is out here sabotaging, leaking all types of...
Yeah.
It was really interesting because I remember, like I said, like 2 years ago, there was all this negative press about Kamala, not on Fox, but on CNN. You know, they were talking about, like, she was hemorrhaging staff, she had high turnover, she doesn't treat people well. I'm like, who from this woman's team is blowing her up like this? Mm-hmm. It's probably this one.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Damn. We continue.
She had been messaging against her, besides the fact that the entire campaign was constructed for Joe Biden. They just put a different face on it. And I think a lot of people understood there's a Frankenstein nature to this campaign. So it didn't feel right. It didn't fit right. And you've done a lot of criticism of the consultant class.
See, this is one of the things that gets me about, and we're going to talk about this when we talk about, plug back in with the Native Land podcast, which is a black political commentary show. Like, this is the thing that gets me. There were so many significant barriers to Kamala getting over that to whittle it down to racism and sexism, to me, is just crazy talk. Mm-hmm. It's like, this woman had people that didn't like her. She had a mole from day one. Biden didn't like her from day one. He never wanted to choose. I mean, it's like she had significant problems. She went on The View and said she wouldn't have done anything different than Biden. Like, you know, even her own staffers yesterday, we were covering it. They were like, I mean, what could we do?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Those are her words.
Yeah.
We continue.
Kelly Dillon is one of these people who has an ad buying company. So when a candidate places a television ad, Jen O'Malley Dillon or someone like her is personally enriched by that decision. In a campaign where television ads were maybe not decisive, and Trump going on podcasts and the brosphere, the manosphere, and seeming like a man of the people somehow, when that was working, Jen O'Malley Dillon and people like her are incentivized to not notice that trend because they are being personally enriched by putting her on TV ads again and again. So
no, I disagree with that. He's trying to make a dichotomy because Trump was going on the Aiden Ross show. Mm-hmm. He went on the Joe Rogan show. what's his face? JD Vance went on the Joe Rogan show. They're having these 3-hour long form conversations, and he's saying, "Well, how come? Hey, happy birthday, Otter!
Happy birthday!
What's up, buddy? L'chaim, baby. L'chaim. That's my boy." Go ahead. What were you saying?
No, you were saying Trump was going on all these other shows, you know.
Right. So he just said he's basically making it sound like, at least to me, that part of the conspiracy or whatnot was that they had them doing door knocking and things while Trump was doing these these broadcasts.
Million views podcasts, yeah.
I mean, like I said, he was at 1 million views in an hour with the Joe Rogan podcast. Yeah. And so there was no sabotage as to why Kamala didn't do it. Kamala doesn't have the ability to have a long form conversation for 3 hours with a dude as real as Joe Rogan. She doesn't have the capability. Anytime Lester Holt is not known as like a hard charging journalist. So in the interview with Lester Holt where he's like, "Why don't you go to the border?" And she goes, "We've been to the border." And he goes, "You haven't been to the border, and you're the border czar." And she goes, "And I haven't been to Europe." Right? Like, all the people that are saying this is racism and sexism, like, this woman had serious deficiencies relative to what is necessary to run a campaign.
I agree.
That's just a fact. Now,
especially in 2024, because previously they didn't have to do 3-hour discussions on podcasts. Like, that just wasn't a thing. But now, the tides are changing. I do think that people are. I mean, you said 1 million in an hour.
Yeah.
I think it's harder to bullshit in a long form. When it's a small interview and the questions are told to you before, so you can really plan stuff out. Yeah,
that's what she did with Shannon. She gave him like $500,000 or whatever.
Yeah, and
then they had a softball interview. And if you go to that comment section, every single one of those comments are negative.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with him there. I just don't think that she was capable of having that discussion. We continue.
These are some of the reasons why people keep telling me Jen O'Malley-Dim was a big problem, but Kamala couldn't get away from her because the campaign did not have time.
And there's
the campaign had time. If you have somebody who's been leaking information out about you since day one, you got to aggressively address that threat.
100%.
But Kamala is such a weak personality that, like, you ever heard of this thing like imposter syndrome? It's like people get into these positions of power or whatever, and they internally believe that they're not qualified. It's usually a malady that happens with men, and that's why, a lot of these guys, I'll talk about that offline, but it's called imposter syndrome. So, like, even a guy like Tom Brady might have it once in a while, that type of thing, right? And so I think that Kamala has a serious case of imposter syndrome. I think Kamala understands that she does not have the political talent and the know-how to even be the vice president, much less the president. And so because of that, she's just going along with wherever the wind takes her or whatever Obama tells her to do. This was never her campaign. She was the figurehead, and they were just marionetting her and tell her, say this, say that, do this, do that. There was never anything where it was like, no, I'm calling the play, I'm the leader. Obama did that. Biden did that. Trump definitely did that. She wouldn't do that. So I just think that she knows that, she's not really a gifted politician at all. But we continue.
Reporting that there were still Biden signs up inside Kamala Harris headquarters on election day because it just they hadn't fully shifted.
There were still Biden signs on the Kamala Harris.
On the day of?
So bad. But, that's what I'm saying,
See, that tells me that you don't even have the love and dedication of the people working for you, because they would have immediately been like, that's coming down, this is out of here. You wouldn't even have to tell somebody to do that.
The Harris team, the Harris team, the Biden team is upset because essentially what happened was a soft coup. Which, if it's soft, I don't know how you can really call it a coup. But it's clear that Mr. Biden did not want to leave. It's clear that Mr. Biden had the impression that he was exponentially better than her, and he was not going to give her any support, and he didn't.
Nope.
He gave her no support. So
until that final discussion he came skipping out to.
Yeah. Unbelievable. I don't even think he mentioned her in that luncheon or whatever it was.
I thought he did. I thought he said something, but...
Oh, man.
Didn't he? Isn't that when he said basically, like, now you all know of what I've been working with, but he tried to make it sound positive, but you were like, wait a minute. Now everybody knows.
That double entendre. He goes, now everybody knows what your skill level is. Yeah. That's why I'm saying, like, I never like to make fun of his, mental decline, but two, if you catch Joe Biden in the morning, he's still Joe Biden, and he delivered that speech in the morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, by the way, there were racist text messages sent to black people after Trump won, and we actually got hold of the person that did it. You should probably change that and say, person behind the racist text messages revealed.
The title?
So we're going to reveal the individual who sent those racist text messages to all those people.
Okay,
and you'll be good to go.
Is that the name you want me to change it here, or are you saying put that in the description as the next section?
Change it on Restream.
Could you talk to us a little bit about Jen O'Malley Dillon just as an operative, like who she is, where she came from, like the context about her? Because I think it's sort of telling, and you're right about this. I mean, it's sort of telling as to what ended up happening.
Well, Applejack. Yeah, I understand. Oh no, sorry, 275. What's up, baby? I can't imagine anyone wanting Biden's overt support. Well, if it was me, I would not need his overt, speaking support. But what I would need for Biden to do would be to go behind the scenes and let all the people loyal to him know that, hey, this is where we're going, that type of thing. Because if you don't do that, it's not going to happen for her. He doesn't need to go stumping for her, but he does need to convince the people that are still loyal to him. And look, if I look at Biden, aside from the gas and stuff, he looks like a guy, honestly, that could engender a lot of loyalty in his employee pool. So, yeah, good old Kamala. We continue.
Biden person, she was huge in the victorious Biden campaign. She was also huge in the disastrous Beto O'Rourke for president campaign. She was the deputy White House chief of staff. So this is a real Biden person. And people talked about how Biden did not let new people in. Almost everybody around him had been around him since the 70s. Many of them shared his last name or in his family. So to let somebody else new...
Since the 70s? My God. What is going on?
I mean...
Since the 70s. I mean, that's incredible. That's like 50 years ago and shit.
Into the group, like Jen O'Malley Dillon, she had to be really loved and trusted. So this is a person who signed up to work for Biden, who believed in Biden as far as the campaign, who felt like this is the guy. It's hard to run a campaign when the people around you didn't sign up for you and don't necessarily believe in you. And we see in Jen's example, a lot of people are like, they never liked her. Jen just never was impressed by Kamala, didn't want her to be the VP.
Look, man, when you're in a room with a lot of high performers, if you got there for some weirdo, spooky reasons, like I've been guilty of this, man. We were, it's like I trained for this, I did this. I'm literally 0.00002% of the people in the world can do this, right? And it's extremely, people die, like literally, before they even, you know what I'm saying? And then in comes this person.
Yeah.
And it's like, here you go. Like, you're in a room with a bunch of high performers, man. They're going to resent that shit. And that's what I'm saying with Kamala, man. Like, she obviously was what she every single time she speaks, unless she's operating as a prosecutor, you could tell she has no confidence. And she doesn't believe in what she's saying because she's just doing what she's being told to do.
Yeah.
And I think, Biden is a very good, if you subscribe to the idea that there is a mind behind Biden that's pulling the strings, which I do. I believe it was Barack Hussein Obama. If you believe that, then, a lot of what happened in the last couple years makes a lot more sense. To 275's point, She called him a racist initially. No wonder he didn't like her. Then again, she might have been right. Well, of course, Biden is racist as hell.
I
But
mean,
you got to give him a pass. He's 80
from his
years
own
old.
mouth, yeah.
He's 80 years old, man. Give him a pass. I don't care. But like, that's my point. Somebody came into the chat yesterday and said, like, yo, why do you keep saying she's disingenuous? And I pointed out what 275 just said. She gave this impassioned, I was the girl on the bus thing, and then she's out there jumping around, stumping with Biden. And then Jon Stewart's like, yo, I thought you said... And she's like, it's a debate. Then she did the little cackling thing like, man, get out of here.
Yeah.
We continue.
You have that sort of a person who doesn't really believe in you, truly, deeply important to your campaign.
I think it also, and you indicate this as well, could have had an impact on their inability to separate themselves from Joe Biden.
Yep.
And this ends up being, one of the most central problems I think everyone would acknowledge with the campaign is Kamala Harris gets asked this question on The View of like, what would you have done differently? And she says, not a single thing. And it's like.
And that's what her operatives were talking about in the Pod Save America. See, they had to throw her under the bus because they need a contract in 28. So they just got to say, listen, you guys sent us the worst candidate of all time. That's what that section that we covered a couple days back, that's what it was all about, was a consulting class showing up and saying, hey,
don't fire us.
You guys gave us a wrong person to work with. What did you expect to happen? I mean, she just had so many things stacked against her. I don't see how anybody could just offer up this simplistic racism and sexism is the answer for these problems. Like, come on, man.
When she said that she wouldn't have done anything different or that there was nothing she could have done differently, was that before or after everybody found out how much of the money was just spent? And how much in debt the party was as a result of her spending spree?
That was well before.
Okay.
The $20 million debt that she has came at the end of her presidential run.
Okay.
Right, so, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I didn't know
you
when
got
she
this
said
guy
she
who
wouldn't have changed anything.
Profoundly unpopular. You can see the polls. We can all see the polls. We know as a change election, one of your biggest jobs is to try to make the case for why you would be different. And you're unable to do that. Now, obviously, Kamala Harris, the big girl, like she could have come up with that answer herself.
How? There is nothing she could have done. Here's the only angle that I can think of where she could separate herself from Biden and at the same time remain loyal to Biden. Which is to say, me and the president had been talking, and we saw what the inflation was like and everything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we were coming close to our 4 years. So he's got all these plans to augment the situation in 4 years that I'm going to continue. So now we're going to do something different because he and I came up with this, right? So that was a way you could differentiate yourself from Biden and at the same time protect his dignity and not throw him under the bus.
Why are you, some guy on YouTube, as you put yourself, coming up with these answers that her entire team of paid people can't come up with?
I mean, you would be surprised at, like, there are certain organizations, where you cannot get to where you get to unless you are that. See what I'm saying? Like 275. You're not just going to show up in Ranger Regiment like, hey guys, DEI, so there are certain, and honestly to me, I'm not going to say the military, but certain aspects of the military to me are the last sort of bastions of meritocracy. And even that is very, if you work parallel with that stuff and you're a behind the scenes person, you start seeing like, like we're going to cut down this particular, parameter for you to hit PT because then we're going to have X amount of people, X plus, whatever. And then you get bonuses for recruitment because we're in a recruiting. I mean, it's just so many things that you know what I'm saying? And so like, there are only little patches of things that are still like meritocracy. But she didn't earn it.
Yeah.
And she, as we said before, she didn't create a cult following, which I'm sorry, but you kind of have to do to be the president of the United States. Because you got to think about it. You got to convince people that you should be at the helm of the most important country in the world with the strongest military mankind has ever seen. You should be an elite operator at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
But when you have a team around you that is so deeply loyal to Joe Biden and doesn't want to criticize him at all, then you aren't going to be supported from your staff in trying to separate yourself in the way you need to be electorally successful.
That's exactly right. The staff that loves Biden personally, that is loyal to him, that has been with him for years, is not going to counsel her to say, hey, I'm going to be different than Biden. Here's how I'm going to do it. A Kamala staff would have done that, but a Biden staff advising Kamala is just not going to do that. And yes, a lot of people were like, she's not drawing enough of a contrast from the unpopular president. Well, then she becomes a semi-incumbent where she has to run on his record, which she did not create. But then she also has to deal with what has she done the last 4 years? So like, which is it? She was getting the worst of it from both sides.
Yeah, it's almost like, and this is what I'm really curious about too. I've heard some on.
Yeah, man. I mean, Mr. Biden was operating with a bunch of resentment, and I don't think any of us can blame him. You know, I agree that he just mentally wasn't there, but at the same time, I don't know how much of himself he knew.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the other thing is like you said, like when he was at that meeting, he was skipping and jumping. He didn't miss any words. He didn't sound incoherent. He looked well rested and happy.
Yeah, he did.
And so it's like, if you're Biden, when you're really lucid and conscious, you're like, no, I'm good, I'm straight.
No.
And then down in the night, I mean, I don't know how that
yeah.
works, but I could imagine he would be like,
Yeah.
he wouldn't be able to even remember what he did or how bad it was. And I don't look at Biden as the type of guy. I am obsessed about like, how am I communicating? What did I, inflection, all that stuff. Like, I don't believe Biden's one of those guys. I think this is actually a positive for him, actually. I don't believe Biden's one of those guys that goes back and looks at his debate performances. As a matter of fact, one of the dudes from CNN asked him, like, did you get to look back at that horrible debate or whatever? And Biden said, nah, I had stuff to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's actually the attitude. Because watching that video would not have helped him in any way, shape, or form because of his, the situation that he was in. But yeah, like, it's very difficult to tell this man who's all his life he's wanted to be the president. It's very difficult to just assume that he's just going to defer to somebody who everybody knows did not even deserve to be the vice president. Crazy talk.
It is interesting to see when the bunny on Easter was like pointing him in the right direction, and then what he looked like when he came skipping out. So it was like, Yeah, they had that Easter party over there, and they had the one of Biden's handlers. I'm sorry, God forgive me, but one of Biden, I don't know what else to call him. I know.
But one of Biden's handlers, they had him dressed up in a bunny uniform, and they were just following him around and making sure he didn't talk to anybody because there were cameras everywhere. And it was like the oddest thing in the world. And I'm sitting there with myself like, if you're Vladimir freaking Putin, right?
Come on, bro. Come on. Stop. Don't even finish it. Don't even finish it. Come on.
It's like that army thing where the guy's like, we are that platoon.
Stop.
Like, no disrespect, but this is the hurt game now. This is the hurt game. Right? Like, man. And a lot of people don't understand this. Like, a lot of violence is a tool. And if you are socialized around violence, you understand instinctively that it's a tool. And there's certain things that you do and you don't do. And if you've been in enough confrontations and conflicts, you know that whether or not you win, you're getting hurt still. Or your man's getting hurt. If you get back, your man is still hurt though.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, that's a tough lesson to learn, man, because I was truly convinced, like, if I get back, I'll be able to rest. And I didn't. There's no, you know what I'm saying? So it's like,
yeah.
Ooh.
Kamala Harris decided to keep Jen O'Malley Dillon around, but it seems pretty clear at this point that's potentially the fatal error of her campaign. And I know
that was not the fatal error. That showed you the fatal characteristic that she had of a lack of leadership and ingenuity and autonomy as the person who's telling us that she should be atop the entire planet relative to power. We continue.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the lack of the primary. And, your position, I think rightly, on why that was disastrous for Democrats. But even keeping on Jen O'Malley Dillon, which is a decision Kamala Harris didn't seem to have to make, but went with anyway. What do you make of that? I mean, was there any way for Kamala Harris not to hire Jen O'Malley Dillon?
The people who I spoke to who understand the Dems, who understand campaigning, were like, there was no way to move away from Jen O'Malley Dillon. We've got 100-some days. We got to pick a VP. We got to get the messaging right. We got to get ready for the DNC. A million gigantic tasks that we generally spend a year to 2 years doing. We got 100 days. Anything that is not on fire, we got to leave it be and just keep plowing forward.
Yeah.
And Jen O'Malley Dillon was too much of a part of the campaign already. She moved there to support the Biden campaign when the switch happened, which is what they all call it, the switch. It was too late. We have to keep going. We can't replace her. They also had Stephanie Cutter, who was working in communications, who founded that ad buying firm with Jen O'Malley Dillon. It's a very small, incestuous group. So I don't.
Small, incestuous group. Yeah, that's a term that they use for Washington heads all the time. Oh. Her fatal error was running for POTUS. I agree.
What's POTUS?
President of the United States. I really agree with that. That was a big problem. Like, why would you even do that? Why would you run for president? Dead ass serious. Like, why? Why would you do that? Like, you dropped out of the Democratic primaries in your... I don't know how many times I have to say this. Like, and then, like, when her consultants were there, they were like, every poll, they had them losing or close to losing.
Yeah.
So it's like... So they knew the whole time. You know, if it was me, it was me, and I was Kamala, I'd have said, thank you so much, but there's so much I have to do to support the president and blah, blah, blah. You know, so that would have been great because he's like, look, I got to bow out, whatever. And then she could say, well, you know, considering I'm his vice, I'm needed more than ever. So I just can't do it. Like Gavin Newsom or somebody else do it because, like...
Yeah, but do you think it was her behind it? I mean, don't you think that there were people pulling the... Somebody else was making those decisions, right?
Oh, I agree, but she didn't have to go along with it. She could have said, no. Because, look, it appears that Obama was going to have a primary or whatever, and a half an hour after they convinced Joe that he had to leave, he went out and publicly endorsed Kamala without authorization. So he painted them into a corner and made them go with Kamala, even though Obama wanted some sort of primary.
Because Biden endorsed her? What if Biden endorsed her and they don't go with Kamala? Like, well, that would have been worse than what it was?
It would be impossible to not go with Kamala. Because which demographic have you heard constantly saying, we did our part? Who keeps saying that? We did our part, black women. Right?
Oh.
So you can't not run her. Because black women are a guaranteed vote for you. But if you would have done her dirty and not allowed her to be the president, not given her an opportunity, they would have stayed home. They would have stayed home if you would have done that to them. And that's one of the reasons I knew when all these, when Joe and all the rest of these started freaking out about the debate performance, I said, it's over with. This was before the assassination attempt. I'm like, it's over with. Because they're in a rock and a hard place. Because... obviously, Obama's making his power move right now. He's going to go out there and, you know, whatever. Like, I just knew because there's no way because she's so unpopular.
Know how far away from that sort of post-Obama world she could have gotten away from. Because all these people, David Fluff is the third big name advising the campaign. These are all Obama people.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it is... a difficult situation she was put in. Let's put Torre's additional piece up on the screen where you talk about how the lack of a primary really was a disaster for Kamala, is a disaster for the party in general. And again, you know, the Jen O'Malley Dillons of the world are kind of the scene of both crimes because they're also the ones that are leaking to the press, like, you got to just stay with Biden because Kamala would be next in line and she'd be a disaster. That helps to rally the troops and circle the wagon so there is no real Democratic primary process in order to, you know, either pick a candidate who's different from...
Look, if you're a Democrat, I'm sorry, man, but your party does not listen to its constituents. The Republicans do. I keep having to tell you guys this.
Yeah.
There was a Never Trump campaign all through the Republican primaries, especially toward the end. But when it was clear that Trump had taken over, they didn't do the superdelegate thing like you guys did over there in the Democratic Party. They said, well, they're like, well, we got to hold our nose and vote for the guy then because this is what the people want.
Yeah.
So, like, this whole conversation, it kind of makes you... It's amazing to me that nobody's pointing out that this really happened because of what happened in 2016. What happened in 2016 was that you had two individuals who were not going for presidency. 2016 and even 2024 was not about the presidency for Trump. It was about who is going to rule and run the Republican Party. And that's why there was a Never Trump campaign. Because those people saw the writing on the wall and they said, if this guy gets in, he's so freaking popular, the entire party is going to be transformed to his will. And that's exactly what happened. Conversely, on the other side, you had a man named Bernard Sanders, who all the young people loved. All the people of color, everybody loved him. And then what happened? The superdelegates, all that stuff, I think it was one of those things where Bernie won the popular vote, but she won all the superdelegates or whatever. And they came on CNN and they were like, look, like, they basically said, we know what's best for the electorate. They don't know because they're not the experts like us. Okay, great. Well, now you've got that template. So you guys got rid of Bernie and you stayed with the most unpopular person on the planet at that point, which was Hillary Clinton. And so it's like, that set us all on a trajectory because what ended up happening is people, for 3 years under Trump, had great employment, whatever you want to say, then COVID hit. And I think a lot of Americans are not going to blame Trump for anything COVID. Like, I see all the time where they're like, oh, he mishandled COVID, blah, 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 blah. But, like, as an average person, I'm like, well, what else? I mean, you guys actually think you would have been better? None of us had experienced this. Nancy Pelosi was telling people to go to Chinatown and hug your Chinese friends and all that after Trump was like, yo, these people can't come here right now. The Wuhan,
I remember that. They were saying...
And then she's like, we're going to go and hug our Chinese friends.
They were telling people
blah,
to
blah,
still
blah.
come down and vote. Remember that whole thing?
Yeah. The Dems lost this election 8 years ago. Yeah, they lost the party and they lost the young people. That's the thing, is that...
And they lost some of the new recruits.
I mean, you guys know my son. Like, he's one of those operatives, man. He's doing the Project 2025 thing. Like, that's his job. But, I mean, there's a real strong contingent of young, energized, Charlie Kirk-led young people that are out there grinding, doing work, and doing amazing things. Like, it's unbelievable. And, like, they're, like Dorian, he's up in the Northeast, but he was also stumping for the dude in Chicago because they met at at one of those, turning point things. So, it's like, man, I'm looking at that team, and they're strong. And then, of course, you have the girls on the Republican side, or the females on the Republican side, are all looking for that kind of go-getter, alpha male, whatever. And so they're going along. I hate to tell, but the trad wife thing, like, there's a lot of women now I'm seeing on Twitter that are basically saying, I'm going to do whatever my husband says. And these are young people. These are people in their 20s.
Wow.
Right? They're like, whatever my husband does, that's where I'm at. Like, and they're not all Christians either. None of them are Christians.
Are they saying it like, I'm not going to think this through for myself? Or are they saying, like, obviously I picked to marry this person for a reason because I trust their decision-making process, and it's not that he, completely leaves them out of it. But they're both on the same page.
What I got from it was just, it wasn't more about, how intelligent or unintelligent or whatever capabilities. It just seemed to me to be about, you're my leader, and I would not, if I didn't think that you had good decision-making skills, I wouldn't have married you.
That's what I'm saying,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if you're saying we're going with that one, that's the one we're going with. I'm not going to do no secret ballot against my husband, because you remember...
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. That
exploded
exploded on Twitter when Miss Obama said, you don't have to tell your husband or whatever. Because people in Obama's stratosphere, they really believe in this, like, Handmaid's Tale stuff. And they really think that the average American woman thinks like them. No, they don't. The average American woman doesn't want to be by herself, and she doesn't want to be by herself at 40 years old. I don't care what nobody says. Mm-hmm. It's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Kamala, or even just for Kamala herself to be able to go through that process and become a better candidate as a result of it?
Yes, all the criticism of, oh, she's not great at interviews, she's not great at speeches, she's not great at connecting with voters, what have you. All of those things would have been strengthened if she had had time to campaign. If she'd had a year and a half to be out in the trail, connecting with voters, talking.
I don't think so. I don't think that she's good at connecting with people. Like, I think that the criticism is that she's not very authentic and she's not very real. Start to finish, she stayed like that. I mean, even in the video that everybody was saying she looked drunk in, which I agree, she didn't look. I don't think it was as extreme as everybody was making it out to be.
People were exaggerating.
But yeah, but I do see what people are saying. But she was like, you know, she was like the joy, and like I think she was like trying to be positive and stuff, but she just doesn't come across like as authentic as even Trump does. Like the way that Trump talks to people,
Trump is mega authentic
and engages with people and talks about the things that he's gonna. I don't know. You just feel like that you're getting. You may not like what he has to say, but he's gonna say it regardless.
That part.
And I think that that's what people are sort of drawn to. I think we are accustomed to seeing politicians being politicians, and I think that people are ready for something different. Certainly, the upcoming voters are looking for something different, or the ones that are currently,
100%.
voting now.
100%.
To Millie in Iowa, whatever, it would have made her better at all these things. But the other thing is that this air of illegitimacy hung around the campaign. If she had to fight and won, that would have conveyed a certain legitimacy on her campaign. I know some folks are going, she's the VP. A lot of voters, left and right, used words like coronation, used words like coup. They did not like the way that Kamala ascended to the nomination. They wanted to see some fight. And Kamala's message that democracy is under threat was undercut by the not so democratic way that she got the nomination. It undercut.
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is the
what are we doing?
Complete lack of self-awareness. Like, Like, first of all, how did Biden get in there? Did Biden get in there because he grinded and he won? No. What happened was Mr. Obama got on the phone. He told Amy Klobuchar to sit down. She said, yes, sir. He told Beto, get the bong out of your mouth and quit. Yes, sir. Who was it? Pocahontas? You quit. Yes, sir. Well, she waited a week and then she quit. Like, he bounced everybody and propped Biden up. And then, of course, George Floyd happened. And then, Biden goes out of his way to let us know that I'm about to give y'all a DEI hire. And then it was revealed that it was Kamala. Which, to me, if you wanted to do the black woman thing, you should have went with Stacey Abrams. She flipped Georgia for you. That means she's a talented operator. That means she's got singular power. And he never gave Stacey Abrams a time of day. But I think there's a good reason she never gave Stacey Abrams a time of day, because you can't control her, because she actually got shit done. She actually did something where you can look and go, I did something. Now, I'm saying she did it single-handedly. She did not do it single-handedly, but she was a primary reason. She was getting people out to vote. She was getting registrations, voter registrations, all that stuff. And she was instrumental in turning Georgia blue. And so, and this year is interesting because I saw an interview and they were talking about, Stacey Abrams isn't doing what she did last time. And the black dude was like, yeah, blah, 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 she's tired or whatever. That's not what happened. She's disillusioned. That's why she's like, I'm not going to put myself through this again. I'm not going to go and do all, man, that's a hard job what she did over there. I mean, that's legendary what she did.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen anybody do that before at her level. She took.
So what are you saying? She flipped a state from being, red to bringing it to be blue?
Trump won Georgia in 2016.
Okay.
Biden won Georgia by like 10,000, 15,000 votes or something like that in 2020.
I'm not. Is that a significant number? Is that like a big number?
No.
Okay.
In like individual votes, no.
Okay.
Like Trump was. If it wasn't for Stacey Abrams, there's almost like consensus agreement. Biden would not have won Georgia.
Okay.
So.
All right.
Like she did. She was a great operator. She proved herself. I think if she just landed, like, if he selected her as vice president, he could say, look, this girl single-handedly flipped Georgia. Like, she's going to get stuff done. And then, like, it would have been, you know, but you can't control Stacey Abrams the way you can control Kamala.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Her whole argument.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And also, if she had to go through that process, and whether it's her that emerges or someone else, they would have been out there affirmatively making the case of what they wanted to do in opposition to what Biden has already done. So it sort of would have rendered moot this question of how are you different, because you would have had a whole primary process playing out where people are explaining what their views are and how they do things different and what it would look like going forward.
Look like
Yeah, you know, part of the thing too.
Stacey Abrams went to Yale.
Mm-hmm.
And is this like Kamala went from...
She went to an HBCU. I think she went to Howard. You know that college that she was supposed to
right
speak
here,
at?
Howard University.
She went, so Howard is an HBCU, you know, historically black college and university, HBCU.
Uh-huh.
So she's not going to get a Yale education, but Howard is kind of like black Yale. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, you would think that would make her more, like, of a front runner for black issues if she went to a college like that, because that's like, okay, we're not Yale, but we're like fighting for our spot to be that great and all of that. You know what I mean? Like,
Kamala's value system appears to be a value system of having power and control, or having that notoriety as a political figure, and you're not going to do that fighting for black people. Right? Name me a politician that fought for black people. Barack Obama couldn't even mention that he was black. When he was running for president, he never mentioned that he was black. He never mentioned he was going to be the first black president. You got to keep that shit quiet. And then he had to select Joe Biden, who said that guy would have been carrying my... No, that was Clinton that said that. He had to select Joe Biden so the white folks would be okay. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, you know, politics is a dirty Game of Thrones, man.
Yeah.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Kamala's 2020 campaign was relatively short. So she doesn't create these deep bonds with campaign folks who are going to ride with her into the future. There weren't people from that campaign who were helping her this campaign. And other people have pointed out that Tony West, who is her brother-in-law, I believe, who was a huge advisor to this campaign, at first, Kamala was saying, you know, we need to bring down prices. A lot of people were mad about the prices of Ubers. Tony West was a lawyer at Uber. He said, please stop dissing Uber and Uber's prices. That was a great message for her. So the whole message of dealing with prices, they pushed her away from because they were in that system. So she's being advised by people who are not helping her in the right way.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And actually, there was...
And this is what I'm saying, man. Like, it's a dirty game. You don't know who to trust. You know, you don't know. There's just so much you don't know. Mm-hmm. You know? My God.
A lot of reporting about how influential Tony West ends up being. And that's like, you know, the one person she brings in that she feels comfortable with. And here he is, this corporate lawyer who's like, you know, this price gouging stuff, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Yeah, she actually, I was, you know, doing my push-up, whatever it was. And then I heard her talk about price gouging. Like, these guys are jacking up the prices, blah, blah, blah. We're going to stop them from doing that. And I was like, because you know I don't stop when I was like, wait, what? I was like, wow, Kamala's talking about cutting. Okay, Kamala, okay. And I was like, you know what, maybe. And then it's out of my head, like, no, you can't vote for her. but like, that was a really good, that was like a sort of populist sort of idea. She dropped it because one of her handlers is some sort of lawyer. Dwayne says, Kamala Harris's background of being a prosecutor did not prepare her to play politician. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I think that was one of her major hamstrings. Dwayne, think about the role of a prosecutor. Okay? The role of the prosecutor is not to negotiate. The role of the prosecutor is to prosecute someone. Well, how did they get into a situation where they needed to be prosecuted in the first place? They were a criminal, or allegedly, right? So there's not an equivalent power structure there where she's operating as an equal. She's operating from the position of, I am going to get you thrown in prison. And literally, the other side is called the defense. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the prosecutor's on the attack. Mm-hmm. And so Kamala is great when she has the institutional power. Like, I don't know if you looked at the Kavanaugh hearings, but she was extremely meticulous and
Really?
oh yeah, I mean she killed it. But again, she was operating in the prosecutor energy. Because in that particular moment, there was once again a power imbalance because you had this guy sitting down in the backdrop of all these powerful people in the Senate, and she's like looking down from on high and saying, you know, whatever. So she had aesthetic power as well as institutional power, and so she did a very, very good job. But you saw what happened when Tulsi slammed her and started listing off all the crazy shit she did. She completely sputtered, and 2 weeks later, she was out of the race. So if Tulsi would have said that in week 1, she would have been gone by week 1.
Wow.
So, like, that's yeah, the prosecutor thing, I think, really hurt her. The role of prosecutors to illegally keep prisoners past their date for cheap slave labor to fight California fires. Yeah, and this is, again, another one of those things when I hear black YouTubers and they're complaining about the racism. I'm like, guys, are we really having this conversation? Are we really, really going to have this conversation? This woman would not let incarcerated individuals who had not committed violent crime. The chief, I forgot, there were like 3 or 4 like high prominent people in the area. They're like, what are we doing here? These guys are nonviolent. They don't have anything on their records. Like, let's get them out of here. These are white people saying this.
But she didn't want to because she wanted
It wasn't no black like bail reform or whatever. It was white folks looking at the situation and going, these guys are all pretty good people, and you know the weed stuff's getting legalized. How about we just nope? We need the labor. Okay, let's go ahead and pretend, guys, that black people who know that information and said there's no way in the world I can vote for that woman. But let's just pretend it's all about misogyny and racism.
Yeah.
Let's pretend like the black community has no real grievances with Kamala. It's insane to me. It's absolutely insane.
That one. And so actually her super PAC had tested this ad that was all about price gouging. And they said, you know, tested 100%. It was the most effective ad they tested. It got virtually no money behind it because of that pushback from, you know, the Tony West of the world and the other corporate.
Who is not running for president? But she's submitting to this guy as if this guy is the boss. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine Trump saying, hey, I want $20 more million in that trans ad? Nah, we're not going to do that, Mr. Trump. Just go off and do something else. Can you imagine that? Mm-mm. Can you imagine that happening with Barack Hussein Obama? Hell no.
Nope.
So, like, it sucks, man, because it's like, you know, she's a woman, and she's black, and she's going out of her way to submit to this white woman and then submit to this white guy. Like, the whole racism, sexism thing, like, it's such a crazy thing when you look at the way that she was treated in her own race. But I shot a video before they got sworn in. And all the black friends that I had in that particular world were all celebrating blah, 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 blah. And so I shot a video and I said, you watch how this ends for her. I'll put up the video in a couple days. I said, you watch how this ends for her. Yeah. Watch. I told them. I said, watch how it ends. And now look, she's ruined, bro. Like she's complete. Like she's over it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, that shit is just crazy. That shit is just crazy. All right, we continue.
Donors who were uncomfortable with that messaging. So just, a very...
somebody pointed out to me, and I hate to say it, but like Obama world, who else have they elected besides Obama?
No, that's right.
They haven't gotten anybody else elected. Right. And we can love him as a candidate and as a president, but like they haven't had any coattails. And this was another attempt to create that. And some may say like, okay, well, Biden gets elected, like, for sure. But like a lot of other people who the Obama world tried to push have failed.
Well, and Obama world tried to shiv Biden, actually, and never had any confidence that he would succeed. So, you know, there's a lot there. Tori, tell people where they can find you, where they can follow your work.
I'm on Substack. It's called Culture Fries by Torres.
Fantastic. Great reporting on this, and always great to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And
Sager,
if you'd like to
thank
get
you
the full
very much.
show
Can we timestamp
ad-free
that?
and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at break.
section, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm ready for the timestamp.
So just do 1 hour. All right, guys. We're going to be right back. We've got another story to cover. One story says, I'm actually going to let you guys decide. Okay. So, one story is about Joe Rogan, and the other story is about how transphobia shaped the election. So, one is about Joe Rogan, and the other one is about how transphobia shaped the election. Okay? So, did you do that?
No.
I didn't do that. That's interesting.
Well, happy birthday, Adar. Wasn't it his birthday at the beginning of the stream?
That's just weird how it randomly did that.
Yeah.
Unless they hit a hotkey or something like that. Yeah, guys, you can call in if you disagree. But remember, 1 is a conversation about Joe Rogan. 2 is a, what do you call it? A breakdown of how what does it say? How transphobia shaped the election.
Look, Adar was still here. Oh, perfect.
R.I.P. Joe Rogan. He was a good guy. What do you mean R.I.P. Joe Rogan?
Yeah. Seriously?
Nah.
I thought he was just, like...
Nah, he's good. He's good. I don't know. He was saying R.I.P. like sarcastically.
That's what I thought.
All right, guys. Commercial break. We'll be right back. Let's go. How transphobia shaped the election, or a conversation about
racism.
Joe
and text
Rogan
messages. Oh, we're doing that one?
Or we're doing one
Oh,
of the
I
two.
thought you already had decided.
Let's talk about it, y'all.
Middle America.
And you ain't black.
I don't know what I said. The first time ever any...
What are you people? We're Americans. We are Americans indeed, dear listener. My name is Vincent.
I'm Soraya.
And we are Middle America with Vin and Sorry, where we are not left-wing, we are not right-wing, we're just...
right.
We're just right. Okay, guys, we just got done talking about how...
Biden's team secretly sabotaging Kamala.
Secretly sabotaging Kamala. All right, so we're going to do Joe Rogan. Let's talk about Joe Rogan. Go ahead, what?
Just want the timestamp.
Yep. All right, so the people have spoken. You guys want to hear about Joe Rogan, so let's check it out. Joe Rogan on Democrats. Let's see what's being said here, Mr. Rogan. We'll be the judge. We'll be the judge of that, Mr. Rogan. Let's try it. Let's go.
Patrick, let's start with that idea. When people, if there are such people who say that they need a liberal Joe Rogan, what do you think they actually mean when they say that?
Well, I think the short...
I love this conversation about the needing a liberal Joe Rogan.
Yeah, because Joe used to be on the left, right?
Well, yeah, he used to be. And the other thing is, like, you think Joe Rogans fall out of coconut trees? do you
go
think,
grab yourself one?
Like
in the world?
Honestly, like, do you if it was that simple, like, oh, we just need to get a Joe Rogan, don't you think you guys would have done that already? Like, what are we on here? We continue.
The short answer is they do need a new Joe Rogan. The question is, what does that look like? And I don't know if you can actually create it. You know, apparently a lot of Republicans were creating some of these podcasters and so on. So now the mainstream media has...
Wait, the Republicans created all these podcasters? No, actually, I think it was Democrats that created all those podcasters. So you know why? Because you guys pretty much had a stranglehold on mainstream media. There's only one outlet that's explicitly a right-wing outlet. But you guys had MSNBC, CNN, Fox, not Fox, CNN, ABC, NBC. Like, I mean, look at the election thing. They were all depressed, all like across the board. There was only one major legacy news agency that was happy. That was Fox. So what happens is you guys have pushed everybody. You pushed everybody to the right with that craziness. We continue.
It's changed quite a bit, and I don't know if it's so much about who the person is or if there is a person. It's where they're getting their message to and how they're getting it out there. Because obviously, as Joe Rogan and Mel said, everybody's getting their information from their phone. So where are you going to get that now? You can go on X like I do all the time, and you get it from all sides there. But I think for the Democrats, they need to find a way to get their message out to the people that they didn't get it out to.
Misha, I see you ready to jump here.
I agree with that. I think it is more an understanding of the new ecosystem, where people are getting their media messages from. We know that a lot of it is digital, it's social media. People aren't picking up the newspaper anymore.
Did, right? They like TikTok their way through the coconut summer. And
nobody cared about the coconuts. I think that it was a misreading of the electorate, but also a misreading of where people are getting their information. But in addition to that, it is not one person. I think that, Joe Rogan has had more lives than cats when it comes to changing it up. I grew up seeing Joe Rogan, have people eat testicles of animals and crawl through the darkness when he was doing Fear Factor. Then he did MMA, and now he's doing this.
How's that relevant?
I think that they just like to say things that would influence listeners to be like, wait, why would I consume information from Joe Rogan when he had this Fear Factory show or whatever, he was making people consume animal testicle. I think they're just trying to discredit him. That's what I think. I mean, I don't know. It just seems like...
Yeah, but it's like so out of touch because this is a guy that is the most listened to human being on the face of the earth right now.
Yeah.
Like...
And like, why...
Okay.
No offense, man, but why? I don't know who this lady is. So why do we care that you have an opinion about Joe Rogan, that you turning your nose down to him? Like, why should that influence our...
She's on CNN. There's nothing she can do to influence now. The vote's over, babe.
The man, he shapeshifts a lot. That's not necessarily what is the thing that's bringing people in. What Democrats have to do is figure out ways in which they can get to the podcast that their people are listening to. That means your younger voters, your people of color.
There's nothing to figure out. Joe Rogan called you guys and said, let's go. But he would not go with your crazy parameters of a 1-hour show with pre-prepared questions. Yeah. He wasn't going to do that. Because he wasn't going to be a tool of the DNC to get this woman elected. He said, I wanted a real conversation, and I really believe I would have found the human being. That's what he said. He's like, you're human. You got to be in there somewhere. Because all of us know that everything she does is plastic and silicone. Factual. We continue.
They're getting a lot of information from things that are not, unfortunately, shows like ours right now, that are not shows of the competitors either. You have to find a way to break through that. And I think that for Democrats, largely, their investments have been in ad buys and campaigns that are focused on media that the young people, that diverse voters just aren't in anymore.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel like this speaks to the problem with the Democratic Party right now, is that they don't listen to the people. They don't know what anybody wants. That's why they can just, push away the idea that eggs went up so high and just feel like, boots on the ground, regular people, you don't know what's going on with them or what they want. That's why nobody's listening. She just said it out of her own mouth. Nobody's listening to their type of content, and people are being drawn to the Joe Rogans. And the Joe Rogans come across as somebody who, we obviously know Joe Rogan is not struggling over eggs. You know what I mean? Like, he makes enough money on his podcast and everything that he does. But at the same time, he comes across real and in an understanding way and just like an authentic person.
Yeah.
Maybe you should get policies that draw authentic people in.
Well, and there's another question that I have, and Ranger 275 is actually really hitting on it. I'm going to play the part again, then I'm going to post what he said, then I'm going to go back. Watch.
Shapeshifts a lot. That's not necessarily what is the thing that's bringing people in. What Democrats have to do is figure out ways in which they can get to the podcast that their people are listening to. That means your younger voters.
Well, here's the thing. If you say they're no longer listening to us, so we have to go to the podcast. Okay, that's kind of like surface level, great. But here's the question. How come they're not listening to y'all anymore?
Exactly.
How come they're not listening to legacy media anymore? I don't know. Maybe it might have something to do with, let me see here. The CNN editing of his COVID video to make him look sick was wild.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. And these Gen Zers and millennials, they're internet natives, man. They grew up with the internet. They know how to Google.
Yep.
So they're going to find you, and they're going to find all the dumb shit that you did. That's the reason that young people who are turned on to politics don't want to vote for you. You guys had that filter in there. You made the homie look green and pale, all types of shit. Mm-hmm. We continue. Good night, these people.
People of color voters, they're getting a lot of information from things that are not, unfortunately, shows like ours right now, that are not shows of the competitors either.
But no curiosity as to why.
To break through that. And they think that for Democrats, largely, their investments have been in ad buys and campaigns that are focused on media that the young people, that diverse voters just aren't in anymore.
I think Democrats need to find a message first. What is their message to voters? That I don't understand. Do they want to be the far left? Do they want to be moderate? Do they want to be? Where do they want to land? I mean, it's so inauthentic.
This is the main problem that I find with the left. Okay. And I'm not talking about the left as in Republicans are right, Democrats are left. I'm talking about the left like AOC left or Anna Kasparian 2016 type of left.
Okay.
Is that there is no way at this point to have a unified voice on the left wing because the grounding philosophy of these people is postmodernism. Okay? So if you have an understanding that it's damn near impossible for a human being to be able to know the truth and to interpret the truth.
Yeah.
That then leaves the door open for, of course I'm biologically this, but now I'm identifying as that. And you go, well, that's not true. And they go, but that's my truth. You ever heard somebody say that? That's my truth. Okay. Well, truth is that which corresponds to reality. So if you're saying you have a personal truth, what you're saying is your reality is different from everybody else. There's 8 billion people in the world. And your reality is different from theirs because you have said that I am the arbiter of truth. It's my truth. And if I believe something is true, that's it. And how can you build a unified, we need to go into that direction? And a lot of these people believe that everybody piping in is democracy. If you got too many chefs, it's going to spoil the broth. So, like, there is nobody on that in that space now. I don't think I don't even know if Obama would have won a primary with this generation of voter. I don't even know.
That's
because
interesting.
Things have deteriorated so bad already that I don't even know if Obama could have saved the party. Because once again, when Obama was showing up, there was a rally cry about, not Medicare for all, but Obamacare. That was his big thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
To hear, like, we need to find our own. How are we going to create somebody out of thin air? First, they need to find a message and figure out who they are, and then figure all that out.
So it wasn't healthcare access. It wasn't housing affordability. It wasn't childcare affordability. It wasn't having assistance in your home for the that sandwich generation. None of those things.
Who are you arguing with? He's like, hey, you guys got to figure something out, and then she starts listing off the shit. But who are you arguing with? You're talking about people like us to vote for you. You're trying to get people like us to vote for you. No! What you guys talked about was not enough. No!
Look, you guys are the one arguing all the time on TV and on radio and everywhere else about what the message is. I'm just saying they need to figure out the message. And then,
to be clear, Republicans argue about their message all the time. And I think I grew up with right-wing radio. And
no, they don't.
Which,
no,
yeah,
ma'am.
I was gonna say, which issues? What are we talking about?
No, ma'am.
Right wingers argue about
No,
it.
ma'am. The Republican Party is completely and totally united under Trump. You're wrong. They're complete, but this is this childish, and I'm sorry, but it's this child. Well, nuh-uh.
Obviously, Rush Limbaugh. There's always been a robust right-wing media ecosystem, and the question I have is, how much of this is actually about audience and what you will allow? Meaning, the campaign didn't let Kamala Harris sit for 3 hours, and I don't think the campaign would have put her in front of Theo Vaughn to.
They didn't let her? She's supposed to be the second most powerful person on the planet. Forget about saying like, yo, and again, this is all the shit that they do to like get her off the hook. Mm-hmm. They want to blame everybody. I'm sorry, it's black female commentators on this issue. I'm sorry, but it's everybody else's fault. Now her campaign won't let her do X, Y. You're the vice president. So wait a second. You couldn't even stand up to your consultants, but I'm supposed to believe that you're going to go behind a door with Vladimir Putin and get him to finish this nonsense, or sit across from Bibi Netanyahu, and you are afraid of the consulting class, ma'am? This is what I'm talking about. If she was that weak, she has no business being the president. These are dangerous times, dear listener. Yeah. This is not pre 9/11 America where your biggest concern was how much latte is gonna be in your Starbucks, man. Like, this is crazy talk to me, bro. Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Talk about his cocaine habit. Like, Democrats have a different sense of like what's okay to do.
That's actually precisely the point. However, Bernie Sanders had no problem going on Joe Rogan years ago when Joe Rogan endorsed him.
Yeah, and then they put him on a cross for doing it. There you go. Matthew Hoyle testified. They put our brother on a cross for doing that shit. And then AOC and the rest of y'all in their infinite wisdom had Bernie repudiate Joe Rogan. And then he went on to submit to Joe Biden. I mean, you can't make this stuff up there, listener. He repudiated one Joe and then endorsed the other Joe when it should have been flipped. If he would have flipped it, we might have had a different country, inshallah. Let's see.
I've been on Rogan's show 3 times. I've probably heard over 100 hours of it in the past decade. A decade ago, Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders supporter who would get emotional talking about how important it is to legalize.
A decade ago? It was 2020 when he said he was going to vote for Bernie.
Wow.
Wasn't a decade ago.
Marijuana, who would get emotional talking about how important it is to get.
Look at this black lady. Look at her. 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 She's so angry.
The politics, in particular on the abortion issue, who had a host of left-wing opinions, including about healthcare, and liberals drove him away by calling him a racist, unearthing jokes he made, calling him a misogynist, really with no evidence.
When you make racist
calling him
jokes
a transphobe,
about people of color,
calling him a
people
lot
calling
of
you racist
comedians
is likely going to happen
all the time.
Man, would you just let this man speak? Secondly, look at the hypocrisy of these people. This is one of the... I love my people, but I swear we love losing. Dear listener, Mr. Joe Biden went to Charlemagne the God's show. Charlemagne said, what are you going to do for black people? Mr. Biden said, don't worry about that, nigger. He didn't say that. But he might as well.
Yeah, I mean, more.
Because he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. This is also the same individual that said that he didn't want his children to inherit a racial jungle. So we're going to dig up with a guy who has absolutely zero material consequence relative to an election. We're going to bring him up and hold him accountable for a joke that he said 5 years ago. Simultaneous to that, we're going to turn a blind eye to all of Biden's historic racism that was then manifested in that conversation with Charlemagne the God. We're going to ignore that.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. This is why we keep losing.
Calling him transphobic because he didn't like seeing
also didn't love the
Fox
vaccine thing, right?
eating up.
To our point earlier.
That also
see now they're just interrupting him, not letting him talk.
To be a left-wing opinion, to be against vaccines like 20 years ago. Again, so he actually hasn't shapeshifted very much. To your point, the Democratic Party has shapeshifted and driven him away and alienated his followers.
I don't know if the Democratic Party has shapeshifted as much as with the rise of social media, certain operatives within that party can do significant damage because of the ubiquity of social media. Right? So when AOC says something, literally millions of people are going to see it. 20, 30 years ago, she would just talk to the Washington Post.
Yeah, and they would put whatever pieces they wanted to.
So, Doc, there were precious few people.
I think what he ended up seeing was an American political sphere that shifted, and he found ways. He's a lot smarter than people give him credit for. He found ways to walk into where those people were. Yes, he was a proud, ultra leftist, and then he became a proud person on the right, largely because he saw shifting towards the right, and that's where his money and his audience could come from. shifted because more of his listeners shifted, and that's where he drove it to.
I don't think
that's nothing.
This is some projection, right? Because what basically she's saying he's not authentic.
Right.
And he's just doing it to get the people. I mean,
and of course, this is a clear example of cart before the horse. It's not that Rogan's constituency started to skew right and he followed them. I think what happened was he got rejected by the Democrats, and then his audience followed him away from the Democrats. So
yeah,
you have it
that's
inverted.
Probably right. Yeah.
But see, she has to have this cynical, crazy view of Joe Rogan because she cannot admit the obvious. You guys had Joe Rogan, and because of this specific attitude right here, you lost him. And instead of holding themselves accountable for saying, you know, we had a guy as recently as 2020. Everybody's like, oh, we need to find a liberal Joe Biden. And 275 said they used to have a liberal Joe Rogan. His name was Joe Rogan. You repudiated.
That's crazy.
You repudiated his endorsement. Do you think that might have had to do something with the shift? You obviously don't know the mindset of a standard Joe Rogan person, a Joe Rogan fan. You're obviously angry and you're not speaking objectively. You're interrupted, my brother. We continue.
More than consumerism at
Which of his beliefs changed in the past 10 years?
Thank you.
To point out which of his beliefs.
But can I zoom out from him?
No, answer the question.
Yeah, exactly.
I see you nodding as well. This kind of bigger question. Like, you have a Jon Stewart.
So
Never answered it.
What did he ask? It was a policy question. What did he say?
Do it again.
It's hard to point out which of his beliefs.
But can I zoom out from him?
Yeah, which of his beliefs have changed?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to talk about that. Let's just keep moving on. Okay.
Because they just said he's been shape-shifted.
It doesn't fit into the narrative, so we're just going to keep going on.
No,
and that's fine.
Move it forward.
You can get the little adrenaline rush or whatever and feel self-satisfied all you want. Keep doing it on these shows and continue to lose.
I was going to say, but that does not resonate with the rest of us.
Continue to lose.
Because I think there is this, and I see you nodding as well, this kind of bigger question. Like, you have a Jon Stewart, right? You have Pod Save America. You have all kinds of even the late.
Pod Save America. Pod Save America. She's trying to say like, well, we could have them over against Joe Rogan.
No.
These people truly don't understand Joe Rogan's appeal.
Yeah.
They really don't get it.
No, that's true.
And you know,
they wouldn't say that.
I forgot who it was, but they were talking about I think it was TYT. They had a big conversation about the black electorate, and they didn't talk to a single black person. I'm like, we got a whole bunch of white people telling me about how I'm going to vote. This shit's crazy.
This is the group I thought it was.
The Pod Save America boys. Man, get out of here, bro.
His saddened face as he was.
Yeah, these guys are the DNC. They're the DNC arm of propaganda over there on YouTube, man, and we all know he is. Damn.
Television brigade.
They're all left on the late night shows. I think what he said to me is what rings true about this whole concept of finding the liberal Joe Rogan is he said inauthentic. And when you talked about what Kamala Harris did in this campaign, knocking on doors, doing it sort of the traditional way, right? Raising tons of money. But there's something about Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, or Joe Rogan or whomever, they are authentic.
Right. Totally.
And that comes through to people. And when you're trying to get your message out, whatever that message is, you have to be authentic.
You can be authentic, though, when you have something like 20, 30 years in the public eye, specifically the tabloids. There's no gaffe. There's no thing that you can be tripped up
What are you
by.
talking?
I mean, you're a politician. Right. You know what it's like. Very careful.
Trump has been in the public eye for a very long time.
Who is she saying was in the public eye for 30 years?
I thought she was talking about Kamala.
She's saying about Kamala?
I thought that's what she's saying.
It might have been Kamala.
But still, Trump was in the public eye. Trump had to overcome,
Yeah, I want to hear that again because I don't really understand this lady's point.
Specifically the tabloids, there's no...
Whatever that message is, you have to be authentic.
You can be authentic, though, when you have something like 20, 30 years in the public eye, specifically the tabloids. There's no gaffe. There's no thing that you can be tripped up by. I mean, you're a politician. Right. You know what it's like. Very careful campaign.
The left needs to find a relevant voice that can live in that exact moment and be that authentic person, not just carrying the party's water.
So what about Pete Buttigieg? I see him everywhere. And he's on Fox constantly.
But he's not a Joe Rogan.
Pete Buttigieg? Hey! Pete Buttigieg. That's the guy that you.
That guy?
Nope. They really see.
Come on! Are you joking right now?
Pete Buttigieg. Yes. Yeah, he is definitely the heir apparent to Joe Rogan. Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
La ilaha illallah. Let's go.
Running a day-to-day.
No, I just mean like it's possible for figures to go out.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to hit all the boxes. You got to be a good communicator. You got to be relevant. You got to be able to push back. You got to be able to.
No, you don't. No, you don't. I don't believe that Joe Rogan's a good communicator. You know what I think about Joe Rogan? You know what Joe Rogan's superpower is? He's a good listener.
And he asks questions.
This is one of the most basic things about this man's appeal that you folks don't understand. Mm-hmm. He listens to people. That's 99.999% of his appeal.
Even this right
and
here.
And he's curious.
Mm-hmm. Even this right here proves they do not understand the people. Because to compare Joe Rogan to this guy, I don't even know Pete Buttigieg very much, but I've seen a little bit of his stuff.
I have more.
And come on.
I have more Riz.
How could you say that?
I have more Riz in my pinky finger.
How could
dear
you
listener,
say that?
than Joe Rogan has.
But
than Pete Buttigieg.
This is why these people are deeply disconnected from what's actually going on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, you heard the term checking the box. We used to have that phrase. Like, don't just check the box. Like, there are things that you have to do.
Yep.
But don't forget why you're doing them. Don't just say, okay, I did that. Like, that's how people who are disengaged and don't respect the people that are coming to them, that's how they think. Mm-hmm. What series of actions do I need to do to get you to give me this result? It's not, I'm curious about you. Yeah. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
If you say something I disagree with, I can't tell you how many times I listen to Rogan. He goes, now, why would you say that? Mm-hmm. You know, and they teach you that stuff in other organizations. Like, but like, it's clear, like the man is eminently curious and he is open to anything and everything as far as ideas go, as long as it's sincere. Mm-hmm. Matthew Hoyle says, I don't get any of this. Joe Rogan will allow anyone from the left on if they're happy to debate and be genuine. He had the CNN doctor off after they slagged him off over ivermectin. Correct. And then he cornered the guy and made him admit that they lied. that was glorious.
Invite guests on that are newsy. But I think at the end of the day, the left, Democrats need an honest umpire. One of the most damaging parts of this entire campaign.
Say that again, an honest umpire.
An honest umpire. To be able to call balls and strikes. And so one of the most detrimental things that Kamala Harris, in my opinion, did during the campaign was when she answered the question, what would you do differently than Joe Biden? She said nothing. Now, I think that was born out of respect.
Over. It's over with. And a lot of people are trying to come up, well, she's trying to be loyal, blah, 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 blah. I don't think so. You know what I think? I think she said that because it's true.
Right.
There was no strategy behind it. There was no nothing. She said that shit because it's true.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think
that's why she said it, you weirdo. Ask Mayor Pete if he's been to East Palestine yet. Right. I cannot believe this, man.
For Joe Biden, but it rang in the ears of everybody trying to figure out who they wanted to.
Which the campaign said just this week.
If we want to have a relevant voice in the Democrat ecosystem, you've got to have somebody willing to try to take those steps. One of the things I heard often on the campaign trail in these swing states was, you can respect an audience, but you don't have to overcompensate for an audience. And it felt like so much of the party platform of the Democrats were trying to compensate for parts of the party or parts of the policy
position. This gets back to the coalition management.
And somebody needs to stand up and grab the reins.
We also remember one thing here.
Yeah,
is he talking about? Go ahead.
Well, the Native Land podcast was talking about this too. Is the Rainbow Coalition? Okay, so when Jesse Jackson was running, Jesse Jackson rightly surmised that, look, and at the time, black people were still 15% of the population. We were still in second place when Jesse Jackson started running. Of course, we've aborted ourselves into third place now. Shout out to all my African Americans everywhere.
Like literally abortion.
Yeah, we literally aborted ourselves out of the number 2 spot. So there's that. But like, it's just crazy to me how these people are saying all this stuff. and they're really serious saying it, and they have no freaking idea how tone deaf they sound.
Yeah, it gets back to the coalition management.
And so, like, here's the thing about the coalition that happens, right? You do not have a coalition. The reason you don't have a coalition is because normally in a coalition, you have everybody coming together, marching in the same direction toward the same goal. And the problem, and again, a lot of this is philosophical. If you start from the perspective that everybody can invent their own truth, then there's no way you can have a coalition. Here's why. You got trans people that are like, listen, we need to put Leah Thomas in that pool. We need, if Leah Thomas is walking around naked with her penis erect in a locker room, cool. We need to do that. And if you compromise on that, you hate trans people.
You're out. Yeah.
Then you got the gossip people over here. They don't give a fuck about the trans shit. Like, yo, my cousin just died. I don't care about your trans shit, right? And like, they're all, so they all have their little agendas. They're all self-important. They all believe it's the most important thing in the world. They all believe they're on the side of truth and justice. And as I said, too many chefs in the kitchen spoil the broth. If you're everything, then you're nothing.
Right.
And you go to the average, you said you saw it on the Jubilee thing. They're like, what policy and the girl didn't know.
Nobody, nothing. But
good night.
Is this also, okay, what was the point that they just had said?
We were talking about the coalition building and why the coalition isn't working. The coalition isn't working because you guys are all postmodernist.
Yeah, and they're focusing
on... You don't have an understanding of truth, and because you don't have an understanding of truth, now you have this concept where everybody's silly opinion has to be validated across the board. And that's just dumb. Go ahead, what were you saying?
Well, when Harris came out and she affirmed that she was going to be using taxpayer dollars to transition people in the prison system.
Yeah.
I think that was also another, like, they're saying, well, she didn't have time or whatever to like get the policies in order and stuff, but she was going out and saying things like this that was
correct.
That I again
correct.
Not understanding. Like that's what it was. He was talking about kind of like focusing on certain demographics or on certain things instead of realizing, look, there's a broader picture. Like,
yep.
Not everybody is in this situation. In fact, I mean, there was a negative response to that because the majority are not good with that. The majority are not good with saying somebody that murdered, I think, a man that had 2 kids.
Three kids.
He
murdered a father of 3.
Right. That's the person that we're going to be spending taxpayer dollars to. No. What are we talking about? Well, at the same time, she kept people in jail so that way they could burn, run the fires, or the guy that was on death row and she was smirking at him. What is she, you know what I'm saying? Like, these people need to reevaluate. They need to just like clear the drawing board and come back to finding out what their actual constituency wants, because they, like, clearly on this show you're seeing it, even these people don't even want to hear anything outside of what they've already heard. Well, if nothing changes, nothing will change. So if you want this to just keep getting repeated, then continue on your merry way and you know everything. But if you actually stop and find out what your people want, and that's what Joe Rogan represents.
Yeah, he represents a genuine curiosity and a genuine desire to know the people that he's talking to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you guys, everything is just strategy. And that's the thing, is like the disdain that these people have for the average American. Just because they didn't go to the Ivy League school and all the rest of it that y'all went to, doesn't mean that the average American doesn't have any intellect or can't see straight. They can see straight.
Right.
But these people have so little respect for the electorate that they're like, what's going on with the peasants? I mean, what do we have to do? That guy like, hey, the peasants like, hey, Buttigieg, go talk to the peasants and for 3 hours. It's like, what are you doing? Wow, we continue.
Needs to stand up and grab the reins.
Grab the reins.
Because I keep hearing I heard it from you a couple times. Mandate. Okay, Donald Trump's gotten almost 77 million votes. He's approaching 77 million. Kamala Harris is approaching 74.5 million. That's a $2.5 million vote difference, which is big but not huge. So is it really? I know the Republicans have to always.
Yes,
it's a mandate.
It is a mandate, because a mandate means that the country overwhelmingly is looking at you and saying, "Get this shit done."
Set a date, make it happen.
I'm sorry, he won the popular vote, which has never doesn't happen with Republicans. He crushed your girl in the electoral thing. He almost had 100 more electoral votes than she did. And as of 6/17 on the East Coast on the 29th of November, Mr. Trump has 76.9 as his $1 million number. So they've got Trump here at 77 million, right? 76,917,000.
That's physical votes, like
That's
individual votes?
That's the entirety of the votes, yeah.
Okay.
Kamala has 74. So, and it's a low 74. So Trump has 77, Kamala has 74. That's about 3 million. Okay? Now we're going to see this guy try to gaslight us and act like there wasn't a real mandate or something extremely significant didn't happen, which is what they always try to do. And it's the exact same thing they were doing with the polls. It's the exact same thing they were doing with the polls. They were juicing up the polls to make them look more glamorous than it really was. Look at that screen cap. Look at that lady. Look at her face. Look how miserable she is.
The other thing that they were saying was they were being told not to listen to the exit polls.
That's right.
Because those basically didn't. I don't know what was their reasoning. It sounded like they were saying they shouldn't listen to those because they're flawed. Well, ma'am, sir.
I mean, that's still a lot of votes that Harris received in this.
When you have the Senate and the House, I think that's a pretty big voice that the American.
It was a solid victory, no doubt. Was it a mandate?
I actually want to know, I think X has a role to play in this because there's a little bit of shadow boxing the past activism of the past decade. And by that I mean that when Elon Musk purchased Twitter, people were always worried about what would happen on Twitter and the Twitter mobs coming after you and the kind of progressive politics that was able to punch up from Twitter more or less feels disbanded under X. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you guys are all fleeing. You guys are all fleeing X to go to Blue Sky or whatever.
Blue Sky, yeah.
There's like 14 people over there on that app, bro. What? Now she's trying to blame Elon. Look, I am certain, algorithmically wise, Elon's going to make sure that all his shit is there. Mm-hmm. He owns the company. Mm-hmm. I don't care. But we're not going to act like the folks in Twitter were not completely throttling us and suspending people during an election season.
Exactly.
In private messages, they were still suspending people who were sharing the Biden laptop story and in private messages, yes, on Twitter. So they were going into your personal conversations and then suspending you until the election happened for a lie because the Biden laptop was real and legitimate. That's what happened.
That is because
people are still like, oh my God, what about this? And
the algorithm has changed significantly, and a lot of those activist voices have been quelled. Many of them don't pop up in people's regular search engines.
Listen, it's like 48 to 47. Like the right wing and the left wing, as far as like how things get bandied about on Twitter, they're even. Prior to Elon, it was like 76 to like 35 on the left wing side. Mm-hmm. So she is looking at being brought down to equality as what's his face is suppressing information or whatever. Okay? So no, what really happened was you guys were getting propped up by your operators and your operatives over there in Twitter and Facebook because it was a coordinated assault, and you guys went to quell the speech of Americans in the public square during an election. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why all of you now hate Elon and want to see him gone.
And it's also another reason why you're out of touch with what's going on. You cannot silence the voices and then say, what? I don't understand this. You don't understand it because you silenced the voices. You have to listen. You have to.
Wolfbane says the problem is if you disagree with their policy, you're not wrong. You're immoral. Correct again. Mm-hmm. I don't know who this brother is, but again, correct again. And again.
And you might get thrown into jail over some of the
This
issues.
is the dichotomy because all these people are postmodernist, and yet when they decide
like it's not like that.
Yeah, when they decide that hey, trans women are women and blah blah blah. If you don't go along with it, you're gonna come on, guys.
Yeah.
Look at this. In private messages, they were operating with the FBI to censor Americans. I cannot emphasize this enough. During an election. How much you want to bet that suppression of speech had way more to do with the outcome of the election than the little troll farms in 2016 with the Russians?
Instead, you're hearing a lot more from the right, and part of that is because that's how Elon set it up. He amplifies the voices of the right wing. He amplifies his own voice, and he's trying to ensure that, you know, all voices are not heard equally. And we've seen that time.
This is so amazing.
Literally the opposite is true. Literally, I'm telling you, it's like 48, 47. I'm gonna get
They
this
were
stat.
the ones that were trying to amplify their own voices by suppressing other voices and putting their things out there like that and lying to, like, they're using all these tactics to amplify their voice. And then when it starts getting fair, they have a problem with it. It's crazy.
It's absolutely, it's insane.
Yeah.
It is absolutely insane. All right, we continue. Holy moly!
But I think that also contributes to maybe the left feeling like they've lost a microphone. And another thing,
I think the left just doesn't like what they're hearing. That's why they're all running to this blue sky thing that they want to do now. I think a lot of these people don't want to hear conservative voices. That's the far left. They don't like hearing things. That's part of the problem they had in this last election that we went through, is that when people, you don't agree with me.
Oh, now you're gonna blame the far left. It's the far left's fault. So it's Elon's fault. It's Republicans' fault. It's the far left's fault. It's not you guys in the DNC.
Oh.
It's the far left.
Oh.
It's the kid with the green hair with the 18 pronouns. He's the problem. Not you. He's the one with all the influence. Not you on CNN. Are you listening to this stuff? This is crazy to me.
Nobody's taking responsibility.
Well, you're out the door.
Right.
And I think that's what's been happening on X.
Harry Anton on this network reported that X's frequent users now are exactly split between Republican and Democrat now.
You got it right there. Thank you. Wait, I want to find out who created that report?
X's frequent users now are exactly split between Republican.
That's what's been happening on X.
Harry Anton on this network reported that
Harry Anton on the network. No. Talk to the people. I gotta get this up here. He didn't. No way. Did he really do that?
I mean, why would that? I think it probably happened because why would you lie about that and name somebody?
I just want to see. I just want to put eyes on it.
I agree.
I just want to talk to the people.
I mean,
what's the guy's name? Harry
Anton. Right here. Harry Anton.
How do you spell it? Enton. E-N-T-N?
E-N-T-N. Yeah.
All right, talk to the people.
It's pretty crazy because, like we said before, you had Harris coming out and saying that she was going to use the taxpayer dollars for those transitions, but now they're saying that they're blaming it on the blue-haired people, which slide over in that direction. So she made a policy decision and foisted it upon the rest of us. And then, and now they want to blame the people that she was going out there for the reason of their downfall. But you made those decisions.
Yeah. I need to find that Harry Anton situation with Twitter. Applejack, one of you guys get it. Ask Grok or ChatGPT to get that thing up. Say, did Harry Anton say about the split in Twitter? Unbelievable. I don't know who this black dude is, but he's washing these people right now, bro. They're getting washed. But yeah, the split between Twitter is now evened out because, and that's the problem. That's what they're worried about. What they say?
It seems like I can't do any more browsing right now.
Oh, you asked all your questions.
Apparently. That's okay. Okay.
X's frequent users now are exactly split between Republican and Democrat. Now, if that's true, that means all of the people on the left leaving X right now are leaving essentially a reflection of the country because they're not comfortable with the power they used to have.
Wow.
You are leaving a reflection. If that split is true and you can't handle it and you're going to go to blue sky, that's because you can't deal with the country. Woo! That's hot fire.
If people didn't kind of flock to their
for me, it
corners.
just feels like it should be the public square. I think those are Elon's words. He referred to Twitter as the public square. It feels like his thumb is on the public square, right? He's influencing it with, like I said earlier, he's 4 out of the top 10 feeds are.
Why don't you address what the man said about what happened on your own channel? That's the thing that gets me. It's like the guy didn't even say anything.
Oh, I know.
They just kept
but
it
they've
moving.
been doing that with a lot of the stuff. Oh, now we're gonna move on to another thing. They won't answer.
Yeah, it shit is incredible to me. It's just absolutely incredible to me.
So how do we find this? Like,
yeah, right there. Okay, so here's
relevant web pages.
It
right
seems
there?
now that the ideological. Yeah, get that right there to me.
I'm just gonna.
Unbelievable. These people. Oh my gosh.
I don't know, man.
All right, we continue. God Almighty.
Coming from Elon Musk. That just doesn't feel authentic.
Like that. Yeah, which is, I mean, it's interesting. I think that sometimes I think it's too navel-gazy, right? Like it's a media thing, like whether we're on Twitter or not. But you also saw in this last election how much media still matters. It may not be the traditional media the way we think of it, but sitting down and doing a good interview still means something.
Wherever you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there you go, guys.
And the definition of a good interview is authenticity.
There you go, guys. Ask me anything, by the way. We're still going to be up. If you guys got some questions, we could do a quick Ask Me Anything but by the time we load up the next video, because we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. What a world we live in, man. Hey, at least we're not bored, y'all. At least we're not bored. Ask Grok to get you the link where he said that. You see how they like?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was down here because it said relevant web pages.
Yeah, just say get me the link or the YouTube clip where he says that. Okay, guys, so here we go. We are available for an Ask Us Anything. Ask Us Anything. Tim Pool pointed out that the rules on Twitter were disproportionate against conservatives. When Elon bought it, he allowed the conservatives back, who were banned for conservative talking points. That's correct. It's like watching an atheist debate a Christian. When the atheist can't refute the Christian, he moves to a different topic. I've been in a couple of those. Shout out to all my atheist friends. Oh, for real. Oh, my goodness, guys. Okay, so that was the news. Look, if something else pops off, because I don't see any questions, although there's 65 of you in these various rooms. If something else pops off, guys, let me know. It doesn't seem like we're interested in asking any questions. You know what? I'll put the 5-minute timer on there. Look, if there's another story you want me to hit or something relative to the election, let me know. I will. I'll download the video and we can talk it out. We could talk it out. All right, my boy Adar. Okay, boom. There you go. So that's the clock. Y'all got 5 minutes to ask me a question. 5 minutes. 5 minutos. Am I being too hopeful about getting some truth out? 9/11, COVID, JFK. I do not think some of the truth issues overlap with each other. It's not necessarily true that Democrats and Republicans are the different wings of the same bird. That's not literally true. But they're adjacent enough to each other to where they commit similar crimes and need similar help, if that makes any sense. So I don't think we're going to get anything like groundbreaking as far as truth goes. Relative to 9/11, relative to COVID, I don't think we're going to get anything relative to that, because I think on the Republican side, there's a lot of motivation to keep that stuff in-house.
I'm not seeing it.
Why do you think they are always linking Tulsi with Russia? Between Tulsi and Russia, after Tulsi took down Kamala, Clinton was out there saying that she was a Russian operator, blah, 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 blah. And I think it's because Tulsi is a type of woman that appeals to men. And it's not because she is pretty or beautiful or whatever. But she I mean, you put her on a debate stage. I mean, she's no sorry, but you put her on a debate stage with Kamala and the rest of them, she's pretty attractive. But I think the larger issue is that she appears to be a woman who's not owned by anyone. And I'm sorry, but the Kamala looks like an owned individual relative to the DNC. Hey, go to Bolivia, go here. You're the border czar. We're gonna leak information about you. They just completely operated with her in the most disrespectful way possible. And Tulsi wouldn't accept that. She wouldn't accept that kind of behavior. She's a dangerous woman because the other thing too is like it gives a lie to the idea that conservatives are just racist and sexist or whatever. It's like, listen, man, Mr. Trump has a female chief of staff. He has a female AG. He's got Tulsi at DNI. I mean, and these are not like pat you on the head positions. DNI is a really consequential position to uphold in the United States. Probably too consequential. Sorry I arrived late. No problem, Thea Ramsey. No problem. We were talking about Kamala. If you want to come on and talk about Kamala, Thea, we could do that because I remember talking to you. Do you think dragons exist? I do not think dragons exist now, but I would not be surprised if dragons existed. That would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form if dragons existed. I have smoke for Shori. I don't like y'all claiming Bernie is independent. Well, isn't he independent though, or is he?
I thought he was.
I thought he was independent, but that he caucused with Democrats.
I mean, obviously, the Democrats are the ones that kind of sent him out. So
Sadak.
How could you say that he was like really with them?
Here's Mr. Wolfbane who says, "What do you think of the voters that didn't show up this election?" That voted for Joe. Personally, I think a large portion might be Gaza protesters. I gotta be very careful about how I answer this question. So there's supposed to be a 15 million vote delta between Biden and Harris. I have a very, very hard time I'll say it this way. One of those numbers can't be accurate. Or one of those numbers cannot be explained in the normal way things are explained. I think that 2020 was a very anomalous year. If you look at the patterns of votes and all the rest of it, there was a significant jump. Now, you could say that because of COVID, there was an overemphasis on mail-in voting. Mm-hmm. And when you have mail-in voting, you don't have to worry so much about waiting in line and all the other stuff that you have to do. You don't have people asking you who you voted for. So, mail-in voting is fun. But it looks to me like because of COVID, you kind of got a lot more conscious relative to, hey, let's use alternatives. Mm-hmm. But now that we're not emphasizing COVID anymore, it appears that people just forgot about the mail-in voting thing or whatever. Well, that could be one explanation.
I don't know. It's the last time that we voted, it seemed like that there was like a lot of discussion about voter fraud and like, stuff going missing and blah, blah, blah. I think people trusted more like going and like sticking their thing in. What do you think? Rather than sending it through the mail. Like you fill out your thing and you slip it in the box.
I think Republicans have that kind of paranoia, but I don't think Democrats did because that's how they won last time. I just think that the Dems dropped the ball. And honestly, not having Stacey Abrams there, I think really hurt them. Go ahead.
Well, like if you're the type of person that steals all the time from people, you're going to worry that people are going to steal from you. So maybe they were aware that some of that was going on in their party. You're saying you could see people on the right being worried about that because of the way that things went the last time?
Well, remember the right had to stop the steal campaign. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, but they don't look very kooky when you look at a 15 million vote delta between Kamala and Joe, especially considering the state of mind Joe Biden was in at the time. It's just...
I see what you're saying.
Okay, Bernie's not an independent. He's a Democrat. Applejack has spoken. I really do love Kamala. A key to her name pronunciation is, like you say, as in like sentence, like a punctuation mark in the sentence, and then law.
Kamala.
So is it Kamala? Look, you just disappeared. So is it Kamala? Somebody phonetically, I used to call her Kamala, and then I kept hearing on NBC Kamala. So I don't know. I'm not trying to be funny with the pronunciation. I will say, like, not with you, Thea, but I get kind of salty about that stuff because it's like, I mean, who cares, man? Like, it doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I'll do my best to get the name properly. For sure. 61% of Finns believe that Donald Trump's election will weaken Finland's security. And Finns may wonder whether Finns may wonder whether we too will become a bargaining chip in Trump's foreign and security policy. Well, Kai, I understand how your folks feel, right? But my folks feel like we've spent $245 billion to $300 billion to your friends over in the Ukraine, and we have nothing to show for it. And we gave away hundreds of billions of dollars during a period where Americans on the ground were hurting. Furthermore, your country, I think, entered into NATO, which can only inflame the passions of the Russians. I don't want, as I said, I understand the situation from your point of view, but I'm an American. And so I don't believe that Americans can just go to war with everybody all the time, anytime. Money runs out eventually, power runs out eventually. And it is not the president's job to be the world police. It's not. And the fact of the matter is, you know and I know that your friends over in the Ukraine did a lot of things to provoke, and it's not just your friends from Ukraine, it's also us, did a lot of shit to provoke the situation that they're in right now. That's beyond question with literally every expert that has spoken about this topic. And so to you, and I'm glad that I get exposed to international people because it really gives you a sense of what people think of you as an American. Because on the one hand, there's almost this like universal despising of Americans, but then at the same time, it's like when you feel like you're in trouble, you got to come to us. Kai, if we continue to go to war everywhere, we're talking about China, we're talking about Iran, we were in Afghanistan, we're in Iraq, we're in Niger, we're fighting shadow wars over there in Africa. When you're an American and you get to a certain age, you register for this thing called selective services. And if they ever get to a point, the military ever gets to a point where they're super low and they can't do it, then they will call you up from selective services and draft you and make you go to war. And I don't expect you to know this stuff, but military recruiting has been down across the board for the United States. And then on top of that, the product that are coming out of this training is not the same kind of product we got 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we're not an invincible nation that could just spend billions and hundreds of billions of dollars and all this blood and lead and manpower, especially getting into conflict with a nuclear power. That is not something that I want as an American for my children. It's not the first time we've been left alone with Russia, nothing new under the sun. Well, I mean, I think that the real problem, Kai, is that you need to hold the people responsible who provoked Mr. Putin to do what he did. And until you guys do that, I don't think you can ever have peace. I mean, again, I'm just letting you know, I got a 16-year-old son, man. He's asking me about a draft. I would never send my son out. I would never let my son get drafted to go fight on behalf of anyone that's not American. Carl Johnson, you do realize, Vin, that if the U.S. isn't the world police, someone else will take that spot. I'm sure you're aware of that and cool with it. No, I'm not aware of that because I don't believe that. I do not believe that somebody else would take our spot as world police because I know for a fact we have capabilities other people don't have. I'll just say it that way. Please keep in mind, dear listener, Russia has a GDP of Los Angeles. Okay? So, no. There are not going to be anybody that jumps up and then becomes the world police because we're singing that. I say you walk softly and carry a big stick. That's what I think we should do. I think the Ukrainians should accept the fact that they lost. You gambled and you lost on the gamble, and because you lost the gamble, you're going to have to give up Crimea, and the Crimeans don't even like y'all anyway. The Crimeans,
what's happening?
We're doing to Ask Me Anything. People are talking about their concerns about Trump getting us out of all these wars.
Yeah, like as in they don't believe that he can do it?
No, they're saying that it'd be immoral to do that because they're going to be left alone to be in the hands of the Russians. But, this is how it goes, man. Like, you lost the war. You guys betted on the wrong horse, man.
Well,
they did. If you go to NATO and you threaten the Russians and you go to NATO and you have all of these missiles that are right on the border, that's provocation.
And the other thing is, it was simply unwise. We're talking about Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah.
It was unwise.
And also Finland, because they're right next door.
Because Ukraine was using American dollars to get big with the Russians. And they should have been wise to say, well, hold on a minute. If the Americans decide to stop giving us money like we're their children, because honestly, I don't understand.
Be careful, because Kai still lives in Finland, so be gentle.
We don't get what does that matter though? What does that matter where people live? We were sending money over there for them to start a war. I don't agree with that at all. I don't care where anybody lives. I love our people, but no, we shouldn't have been doing that. We shouldn't have been sending. Why were we sending our money over there for that? No. Secondly, I really hope
they get us out of NATO.
They should have recognized that they were on the border, and that if we decided to stop sending that money, now what? You can't bank on something like that and talk big back to Russia. Am I missing some of the information about it?
No, you're not.
Because it's just like anything else.
All these people cheering for this shit have never been to war. It's people on CNN and people on, like, they've never been to war. They don't understand the horror of war. They don't understand the cost of war. Hell no, I'm not going to send my fucking 16-year-old son over there to fight for none of y'all.
When I say
especially considering all the racism over there. You want me to send my black child over there? Come on, Kai. Look at the Ukrainians. You know the Ukrainians got a Nazi problem, bro.
When I say like our children, what I mean specifically is that if my kid is in trouble, I'm going to help them out of that situation. I do not understand politically what America was doing sending that much money over when it's not like I'm a mom. So there's not a paternal relationship. So what were we doing? Obviously, America was doing something sending that money over there. But
yeah,
it's just unwise to be in that position on the border like that.
It's just so crazy to me that these European, and I love them, but everybody knows that, like, we're in a recession. We've been constantly talking about how eggs are $20+. What are we talking about here? We got our own country. We got our own country to deal with. I mean, good night. What y'all doing? No, they won't attack the U.S., of course. They'll be policing states in Asia, Africa. That's what is meant by policing. Okay. What's going to happen to America, though? That's their situation, bro. And Carl, you got to be honest. Your friends over there in Ukraine instigated this entire conflict, man. That's just a fact. The fact of the matter is, the Ukrainians, they made a bet, they lost the bet. And when you lose the bet, you lose the money. You're going to lose Crimea. You just have to accept it. It is what it is. This man was pleading with you guys for a decade, and you provoked him for a decade. So as soon as Mr. Trump left the office and he saw weak sauce Biden, he jumped on it. Sorry. Okay, great, Kai. Look, you and the Ukrainians I'm being dead ass serious. You and Ukraine get together and go do jihad. But I don't want my son doing any jihad, and I don't want any of my money going to those people in the Azov battalion, bro. I don't care. I'm not supporting any Nazis, man. And these people are literal Nazis. Literally, they're Nazis. So no, I don't want a single dollar going over to them people. Go ahead.
I don't understand what Kai means by saying, okay, so Kai lives in Finland, and he's saying, look, we also gave around 3.1 billion euros to help Ukraine. And I don't understand. What is he saying? He's saying, you guys gave, we also gave. Is that...
Yeah.
What am I missing here?
Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. You're not missing anything.
What's the point that he's trying to make?
Well, he's saying that we're not doing it all by ourselves. And that's fine.
Yeah,
But you have a vested interest. See, Finland has a vested interest in doing that for Ukraine. There's no vested interest for me to send my son over there to fight side by side with the Nazis over there.
Yeah.
And secondly, Carl or the rest of you, why, Carl, have you never asked me about why are we doing anything for the people in Yemen? Those Yemeni children they've been getting genocide for damn near close to a decade now. How come none of you people that want to send my son over there to Europe to go defend Europeans? How come none of y'all talking about Yemen?
They both border Russia, basically.
What about Niger?
Okay.
What about Niger? All the shit that's happening over in Africa. I never heard a single one of you guys say anything about we need to go into Niger and fix the people in Niger. I never heard a single thing about y'all saying we need to go in Yemen and stop the Holocaust that's going over there. And all of a sudden now these Europeans are getting swimmed up. Now my kids got to go over there, man. Y'all crazy, bro. Y'all crazy. You wouldn't do that.
And you know what? Maybe if so much money hadn't gotten sent over there, maybe there wouldn't be a fomenting war, because Ukraine, okay, I wasn't following it like you were, but it seemed to me that Ukraine got emboldened by the money coming from different places to antagonize Russia and Putin. And
Zelensky, because Zelensky does not run that country. Those Nazis over there threatened to hang him in the public square.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, man, like, when you say I don't want your kid to fight here, I understand that, but you don't understand the situation America's in, man. Our recruiting levels are lowest they've ever been in a very long time. We've got conflicts in nations all around the world. We're saber rattling with the Iranians. We're saber rattling with the Chinese. So it doesn't matter what you want or what I want. If we continue to go all over the world, then they're going to have to institute a draft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So that's what happened in Vietnam. It's an extremely unpopular war, and you had a very hard time recruiting people, so they instituted a draft to force people to go fight. So the more conflicts that our nation is in, the higher the chances that my kids could then have to be drafted to go fight. And I'll be damned if I let my black children fight side by side with no fucking Nazi, Kai. That's not going to happen, bro. So, I mean, look, man, I think the real victims here are the civilians in Ukraine and the civilians in Russia. But if you want to tell me that there's a clear good guy or bad guy in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, I'm sorry, I'm out. Can't do it. Because I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think the Ukrainians, as far as their leadership goes, are evil, corrupt people. And I can't wait for them to be gone, to be honest with you. Here's Carl. Because we're talking about Ukraine, when I mentioned policing in Asia and Africa, those countries are included. You're an isolationist. You want the U.S. out of all those countries. I'm a father, and I don't want my son to go to war, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Carl, do you have any children? Carl, have you ever shot anyone? Have you ever seen somebody next to you, their head explode? You ever seen that happen? You ever dug into the chest cavity of one of your friends to try to... See, everybody's sitting out here in the cool and the calm and the collective and You're not going over there, Carl. You're not going over there. What do you mean isolationist? We've given them people $245 billion, Carl. What else do you want? My son's got to die now? Man, I don't understand these people, man. Carl, have you ever fired your weapon at anyone? Yeah, here's Carl. Because we're talking about Ukraine. Right. So we're talking about Ukraine. And what I'm saying is there have been people that are suffering way more than the Ukrainians who did not instigate anything. Them Yemeni people did not instigate that conflict with those Sunnis over there in Saudi. They didn't instigate that. The people in Ukraine instigated this conflict and then elongated it. Mm-hmm. So if you want to call me an isolationist, go for it, man. Do it. But my kid is not going to be out there fighting side by side with no Nazi. And the other thing, Carl, is that these people are Nazis. When we send billions of dollars over to Ukraine, it's not the average Ukrainian citizen that's picking up that check, my boy. Mm-hmm. If the shit hits a fan here, I'm going there. Yeah, that's fine. Kai. We're bled on our own soil. There's history here that I understand you don't see. I don't. Mm-hmm. I don't see your... I'm an American. Your history, I'm sure you're proud of your history, but I've got children. Mm-hmm. And I don't want my children fighting in any war, mm-hmm. especially for no Nazi. Mm-hmm. So... I'm glad that you said that. That is correct. I'm not from Finland. I'm not from Ukraine. I'm an American. So I'm going to prioritize, and this is biblical, Hoyle, my kinsman according to the flesh. That's a biblical principle. And the fact of the matter is, Hoyle, the fact of the matter is, Kai, if those folks over there would have stopped killing those people in Donetsk, whatever that region is, and if they would have stopped with all the Nazi bullshit, they wouldn't be in the situation that they're in. When are you going to hold these people accountable? Maybe the next country that wants to start poking the bear at a nuclear power, maybe they'll look back at Ukraine and say, "Nah, we can't do that. We got to get to peace as quick as possible."
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kai, I got to tell you, I've mentioned this name a bunch of times. The man's name was Dennis Kyrieve. He was out there in a contingency to go to Mr. Putin to negotiate a peaceful end to this conflict, and the folks over there in Ukraine executed him in the public square for trying to make peace. Mm-hmm. Zelensky has completely governmentalized the media. There's no more private media over there. He has instituted religious persecution. He has unseated legitimate political parties who are going for peace. And you want me to send money and bullets and blood over there to continue that conflict because you guys got beef with Russia? Kai, if you were in my situation, would you want your kids out there in that kind of a situation? Would you? Good night, man. Good night. And the racism of Europeans is crazy to me. Carl's like, oh, we're talking about Ukraine now. I know we're talking about Ukraine now, but don't avoid the fucking point, Carl. Why is it all of a sudden now we got some blonde-haired, blue-eyed Europeans? Now my son's got to go to war, and we've been doing this shit to Yemeni people and people in Afghanistan and people in Iraq and people in Niger and people in Azerbaijan and people in Eritrea, etc., etc., etc. No problem. You could just completely overlook that. But because I don't want to help the blonde-haired, blue-eyed folks over there in Ukraine, I'm an isolationist. That's okay. You call me an isolationist if you want. I'm just tired. I'm tired of killing. I'm tired of the killing. I'm tired of all that shit. I'm tired of post-traumatic stress disorder. I've got a son. He's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. He's about 16. He's taller than me. And he'll still let me kiss him in public. And you want me to send my boy over there so that he could fight next to people who would just as soon kill him as kill a Russian? Man, y'all wilding out. Y'all wilding out. Mm-mm. Y'all wilding out. I'm sorry. Kai, my country has been at war for over 20 years, man. All of my children were born in war. Okay? All of my children were born in the midst of war. We've been doing this for 20 fucking years. I'm tired. I'm tired, Kai. Fuck the NATO, and I want the U.S. military bases out of my country. I'm good with Trump in that. Agree. We, I don't even think this conflict with Russia would even be what it is if we would have just stayed the fuck out of it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
That's what the scripture says, is that God hates those who sow discord among brethren. Mm-hmm. And we have been sowing discord among brethren. Mm-hmm. And the only way to fix that is not war. It's to have peace. You guys need to go to Mr. Putin and create and have negotiations for peace. That way everybody stops dying. That's what I think you guys should do. Here we go. The U.S. Department of Labor. Their iLab findings on the worst forms of child labor is in Ukraine. There it is. There it is.
Unbelievable.
I mean, they're a completely corrupt government, and they have an actor running the show, but he's not running the show. So, I mean, I'm sorry, man. Yeah, exactly. As Jason said, it's not our job. The Soviet Union's gone. The Cold War is over. In fact, the U.S. should abolish NATO. Its original purpose is done. Correct. Why are we continuing to gin up some hostility with this man? Why? What harm has he done us? You know, if Trump or somebody came out on TV and said, listen, the Russians did XYZ thing to us, so this is why we're out here trying to fuck them up and destroy their economy, destroy their people. The misery of these poor Russians because of these sanctions is incredible. Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible. Making a case for who? I don't know what you're talking about making a case. I'm just simply saying, Kai, that I'm tired of war, man.